The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your financial advisor. "2025 has thrown all kinds of financial challenges and opportunities our way. In this episode, we're looking back at the best money advice from 2025. That includes practical tips, smart strategies, and insights that can actually make a difference. If you're ready to wrap up the year informed and inspired, you're in the right place. When should you start planning for retirement, and how do you get started?
I get that question often. When should you start planning for retirement? And that answer completely depends on when you want to retire. I believe a lot of folks have been conditioned to feel the need to work until 65. And then there's a good population of people that want to retire in their 40s and their 50s. So it completely depends. Based on your goals and objectives, when you want to call it quits and live life the way you want to live life, will determine when you should start thinking about retirement. But let's, for example, take a 65-year-old that says, I want to retire when I'm 67. I think planning for retirement needs to happen about 2 decades earlier. About 45, he should be meeting with a financial planner, meeting with an estate planner, and discussing options and putting out targets with goals on how they're going to hit those targets so he can confidently and comfortably retire at 67. Retirement is not just about saving money. Retirement is about working with a holistic team that specializes in taxes, healthcare costs, market risk, longevity, and inflation. It's important to identify those 5 major risks in order to confidently retire.
How do you initiate conversations about money with your partner, and how soon should you start having these conversations?
It all really depends on the relationship, right? We're like, if you are one of those people where you've just started, meeting this person, you've just started dating, just started hanging out, definitely don't do it then, right? That's going to be a pretty big scare someone away.
Yeah.
But I think that usually the sooner the better, right? And it's because if you are used to having these conversations, small and kind of frequent throughout your relationship, it's going to feel a lot less dramatic. It's going to feel a lot less confrontational. And, everybody's thoughts with money, it's kind of changing all the time, right? The economy is always changing, prices are always changing. And so people's philosophies are also going to be changing. And so usually I'll start with, when you're a couple months into a relationship, just trying to get to know the person, you don't ask questions like, so, hey, how much is in your bank account today? Right. Hey, you got any, how many credit cards do you have? But you just start small, right? Are you a saver or are you a spender? Right? Do you like to go out to eat? Yeah. How often? How often are you really going out?
I found a recent Bankrate survey that found 1/3 of Americans have more credit card debt than emergency savings. What comes to your mind when you hear that?
It's a shame because if you think about it, like what happens if, you have the next emergency, right? Depends where you are with your credit cards. Obviously you don't want to be maxed out. So if there was an emergency, you have something to fall back on. I kind of look at that. That's the way that credit cards kind of should be used. It's more like an emergency, kind of last resort thing. You don't want to spend what you don't have. I like to put it this way. So I've done a lot of dieting over my life, a lot of exercise over my life, but it doesn't matter how good the program is. You got to do it. You have to be disciplined, right? So, and I kind of look at credit card spending that way.
Yeah.
You have it. If you are going to use it, you want to be able to pay it off. You don't want to spend the money that you don't have. And I think the issue that runs into, and it really has to do with whether it's an investment or a purchase, is you don't really want to spend too much money on something that's not going to make you any money.
Yeah.
And the way I look at credit cards, if you're not paying it off, it's costing you money.
Obviously, there's a lot going on economically as of late with
Sure.
the tariffs and all of that.
Sure. Yeah.
There's some rumors going around that we could be headed into a recession. Do you think that we're headed towards one? I know there's some predictions out there that say we are, and some people say we aren't.
Honestly, my subjective personal opinion is I feel like I'm leaning a little bit more towards this being an emotional response to what is happening with Trump's decisions. Though what's so interesting is that there have been times in history that emotions have actually driven our country into a recession, right? It's not so much of an economic reaction as more of just a people reaction. I don't know. To me personally, this feels a little bit more emotional with the side effect of the economy versus more economy focused and a side effect of social.
What are the telling signs of that? Are people saying that just because the stock market is so volatile?
Yeah, I mean, from a surface view, sure. I think a surface view, people are kind of looking at it saying, man, look at the market. It is dropping almost every single day, right? Today, as of this phone call, I think the S&P is up 6.5 or something crazy like that. But still, it's volatile. It feels scary when you look at the market charts. When it comes to the actual numbers, right? Like I know Trump he's been asking Mr. Powell every day to drop the interest rates, and Jerome Powell sitting there looking around and saying, I don't think it's time yet, right? And he's looking at all sorts of factors: unemployment, consumer spending, business production. He's looking at that saying, economically, I don't know if it's time to drop the interest rate. So there's all sorts of factors at play. To me, it seems that the surface area is really what's driving this more.
You say you're frugal. Were you always that way? And how do you stay disciplined, or how did you kind of transition into that?
It had a lot to do with my upbringing, because my grandparents, both sides, they grew up in the Depression, and I think they warped my parents. It warped in a good way, but my wife gets mad at me because she jokes around, talking in discussions. What would you change anything if you won the lottery and we had millions? I'm like, no, I'd still be yelling at you to turn the thermostat down or up and make sure the lights are off. It's just, I've always been, I don't have a lot of excess spending. I do have a few nice things that I pick my battles on, but for the most part, I don't buy excessive shoes, clothes. Back to the going out to eat, I just feel better when I eat, a home meal, and I know what's in it. You talked about the expense of Florida. We rented an Airbnb, and there was an Aldi within, walking distance from where we stayed. And it was about 10, 15 minutes, but every day we just walk up there and get what we wanted to eat for breakfast and lunch. And our deal was that we'd go out for a nice dinner the week that we were there. So, we saved the first 2 meals, feeding 4 people. And I think we only spent the entire time for the first 2 meals for the 7 days. It was only spent like $200 the whole week.
What was the first money lesson that you remember learning from him?
My dad's a big saver. He's actually a relatively conservative investor. He's done this for 45 years. He wasn't a huge participant in the stock market. It was more conservative in fixed products. But I do remember when we used to have neighborhood cookie stands or lemonade stands, he always would tell me that, you got to take 10% of that and put it over here, and you make $20 or $10, whatever you make for the day. You should put $2 of that here, $3 of that here. Every time you get money, you should save X amount of that money, whatever percentage it is. And I remember getting my first job and putting money away each pay and opening up a savings account. So those stuck with me. But that's the first one I can actually remember.
Yeah, that's a great lesson because adults still to this day cannot do that.
Well, you're telling me. I work with them every day.
What does financial freedom look like to you, and how can someone figure out what they need to do to start achieving that?
I love seeing people reach out and enjoying financial freedom. And over the years, that has changed. And, when you're younger, what happens is you're getting started in life. Well, your goals of financial freedom are a little bit different. Wanting to get married, wanting to buy a house, wanting to start a family. And then when that actually happens over the next few years, then it kind of changes. Well, growing your family or, career success and where your finances are. And it's going to be limited to the income you make or the different jobs that you have. And then as your family matures, your goals are going to change once again, whether the kids go to college or being able to provide. And then you're empty nesters and then looking to go into retirement. So I look at there's a lot of different phases. So to me, I'm in that phase now is someday down the road, I want to be able to retire. And so my goals today is to live in the home that I want to retire in and enjoy the rest of my life. I want to be able to drive the vehicle that is comfortable to me, that I can enjoy the lifestyle that I want to create. I want to be able to travel with my family and do things with my family and my grandkids, and to spend time with the friends that I have and the hobbies that I've created. And so it's a roller coaster ride over your lifetime. And I've really enjoyed having the privilege, to live in America with unlimited opportunities, that we have the ability to create our own individual financial freedom. The first thing that someone needs to do is they sit down in the phase of life where they're at, is they have to take a breath and sit back and take time. A lot of people are like, well, what do I want financial independence to be? Well, it's not just about financial independence. It's about finding out what you want to have in the near future and then in the extended future. And you need to get the person who is going to be on that journey, or the people that are on that journey with you, to have a discussion. I tell people, you need to take a couple hours. You need to sit back, and because usually for most families, there's more than one person involved, and you have to take their consideration into how do they want to get there and what does it look like for them. So if you're single, it's really easy. Well, here's what I want, and putting a plan in place is simple. But if you're married or you have a significant other, or maybe you have children that you're very involved with, that you're looking for like college education or getting them out and started in life, everyone's plan is going to be different. And I tell them up front, you have to take at least an hour or two. For some people, I tell them, take a weekend and go away where you can clear your mind and have real conversations about what does it look like to you? What does it look like to me? Then let's compare notes so that we can put that plan in place.
What are the risks of renting in retirement? Are there risks?
I think there's three aspects. And the first one is with the home ownership. If you own a home, there are some interesting strategies where you can utilize the home equity, especially if you can tap into home equity and make it liquid. Like, for instance, a home equity line of credit or a reverse mortgage. I know historically reverse mortgages have had a bad name, but the whole program has gotten much better, and there's many providers and that provide that ethically, and it's a great facility, done the right way for the right person, and with the right structure, right? So I think the risk is you lose out on some of those where you can leverage some of those strategies. I think the second is the rising cost of renting. And that is typically when we look at a retiree's expense, the category of expenses. Of course, housing is the number one, more so than healthcare and food, vacation. So now imagine your largest category of expense potentially being subject to inflation, right? And then I think the large part is the instability of the, how do I describe it? Just, you may, in a certain area that you're renting in, costs go up. Now you have to move. And then you don't have control in terms of how often, how often you're going to move and where you're going to be moving to. And so of course, every time you move, that's also it could be a stressful event.
A lot of people think the purpose of purchasing life insurance is to make sure your loved ones are taken care of financially if something should happen to you. But you can actually benefit from it while you're still alive. Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me. A lot of people do think that life insurance is simply for those people that once they pass away, they're going to receive a benefit and that's about it. But they don't realize that there are these living benefits, which are also called accelerated benefits. You might hear that term. And essentially what it is it's the ability, a lot of the policies today, most of them in fact, have the ability to advance a portion of the death benefit for certain medical issues. So typically it's a terminal illness, a chronic illness, or a critical illness. And so one of those three, if they trigger that, they can advance a portion of the death benefit tax-free.
Why should people look into life insurance, and who's it for?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in general, the population as a whole is underinsured. So I think definitely it's worth looking at. You should probably be talking with your insurance agent to look. But I think that for most people, there definitely is an insurance need. As far as who it's for, it's everybody from the young family starting out who need income protection all the way up to the retired individuals that have money that they're planning on passing on to the next generation. And with the stretch IRA no longer an option, life insurance is a great way to pass those assets tax-free to the next generation. So really everything from the young to the old and everywhere in between, and that's where those living benefits come back too, because those near retirees or recently retired, that is a great fit for them.
If someone has recently lost their job, when should they notify their landlords and lenders and any other service providers? How do they approach that conversation? Maybe what should they tell them? Because I feel like a lot of people don't know or think that they can communicate to their creditors and lenders and landlords, about changes in their income.
I think there are only a few things that you can control, right? I'm really unfortunate that that's a reality for a lot of Americans getting laid off or getting let go. But being proactive is key at this point of the process. And so working with unemployment, see if you can collect an unemployment check, and being proactive, having a good line of communication with both your lender and your landlord is going to be paramount to having a smooth transition into hopefully your next job opportunity. So, hopefully when you tell your landlord they're understanding, and the communication is important. If you do have to be late on rent or you have to cut it up into 1 or 2 or 3 payments, I think communication is paramount. Just giving them a heads up, say, hey, I'm in between jobs right now. I'm proactively looking at my sole focus right now, but I do want to let you know that, I will pay rent in terms of my housing, but this is the situation that I'm in. Same thing with loans, sometimes you can apply for hardship depending on the type of loan it is, whether it's a student loan or a personal loan. Maybe you can go into forbearance, say, hey, maybe I won't make payments right now on a bill, a personal loan or a credit card. Sure, on the back end, will it create a little bit more of a principal balance because you're not paying that interest payment? Sure, but at the same time, it's providing that relief that you're in need of.
How do you start long-term care planning? What's the first step that you should take?
Well, there are three reasons maybe to plan for long-term care. The first one, and the most common one that people will tell me when they want to put a plan together, is they don't want to be a burden to their children. So when you're a caregiver, it generally disrupts your work life. It can be financially draining. And a lot of folks that buy long-term care policies or long-term care protection are really protecting their family members and loved ones, both emotionally and financially, if should they need care. So in my case, I wouldn't want my daughters to have to take time off to come care for me. And I certainly would prefer to not be in a nursing home. So having a stream of income that I can use to pay for my care allows me and my family members, whoever's helping put the care plan together, knowing what our budget is, can help us pick maybe independent living coupled with home care. Maybe it's adult daycare, someone coming to my home while I'm away at work to care for my mom or my dad or my spouse. Maybe it's assisted living care where, you need some level of care, but you're still mentally just fine. and finally there's long-term care. So it's a family product.
What's the first step a new graduate should take in managing their personal finances?
Well, there's two things that you need to do. One is begin spending slowly. Second thing is begin saving quickly. Too many graduates. I was one of them. You get out of college, the world is your oyster, you're making money, you get credit card invitations in the mail, you start partying, you start buying, all of a sudden, before you know it, you're in debt. You got a lot of great things, but you're in debt, and now you've got payments. When that happens, after that happens, it's very hard to save. And if you don't save, about a year or two down the line, all of a sudden you've got this problem of debt. So that's why I say begin spending slowly. And one of the greatest ways to spend slowly is have a little bit of restraint, live within your means, buy nice things. Don't get me wrong. Congratulations, you've graduated, but don't overspend. One way to help you from overspending is saving early. Right out of college, first job, first couple paychecks, start creating a savings account. Always put that savings out there first before you do your spending.
If your only option, or you think your only option, is to get into your 401k, how do you weigh that? Because it's interesting, because I just wrote an article a couple of weeks ago with an agent about like the dangers of pulling back 401k contributions. I guess, how do you evaluate? Is it more important to take care of myself right now, or am I jeopardizing myself in the future?
So when I look at when I would advise a person to pull back on a 401k contribution, getting rid of your debt, and even if you look into like SEC bylaws and all that kind of stuff, it tells you that a person should not have debt before investing.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you don't hear that from financial advisors because they like your money, right? I'm just going to be very blatant about that, which is the reason why so many people still end up pulling from different vehicles in order to handle debt, because they're not being told that, hey, you should be set with this much in emergency funds before you make this move, and this much in this. You're told to invest.
Yes.
And so because you've already been told to invest, and not start off with creating a margin of error, well, now who has to be the sacrificial lamb? Well, I'm investing, because I've sacrificed the proper way to do it, which is build up the margin of error first so that I don't tap into it, to focus on investing first, right? And so because that advice is sort of backwards, it is important to just say, okay, well, one, am I guaranteed the growth in the vehicle for me to prioritize that over the growth of the debt on the interest charge? I'm guaranteed to be charged the interest.
Right.
I'm not guaranteed the growth on the vehicle. So I can pull back on contribution for some time period to focus on paying the debt off. That makes sense. Where it may be troublesome to maybe borrow from a 401k or something of that nature. Like, we have to be clear that when you borrow from a 401k, it also changes your cash flow, right? So we have to balance, well, the amount that you're borrowing, how much does it change your cash flow? Is it now that you're taking home $500 less, but the debt that you paid off is only giving you $200 back? Well, that doesn't make any sense.
How much of it do you think also has to deal with like your mindset about and your habits? How much does that factor into improving your situation?
It's probably the biggest thing. In any situation that you get involved with, your behavior is more important than actually the strategy, right? Like, I'll be honest. I think that every strategy, even if I like or dislike a strategy, every strategy and every diet can work.
Yeah.
They can't work if you're not aligned with them.
Yes.
So if you're not persistent, then it won't work. there's just no way around that. There's, so there's some people, being a vegan is going to be best for a diet. Being a carnivore is going to be best, and just doing keto is going to be best. Newsflash, people, both of them work very, very well. What's going to be a struggle is when you try to be both.
Yeah, can't be both.
So, you have to pick something and write it out, right? So you have to pick it and say, this is what we're doing. And then, you'll see much better results.
All right, that does it for this edition of Not Your Father's 2 Cents. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll meet you back here in the next episode.